I hadn't heard you on the radio for a while, and right down the street from my house, they just built USPBL. This was back in 2016. They built Jimmy John's Field, and I come up to the game, and there's Matt Dery as the in-game host. Talk about how that gig came about.
Well, like I said, so 2016, I get fired, and now I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I had gone back to 97.1 just to meet with them and try to set it up like, hey, can I come back? Because like I said, I got a family and mouths to feed, and I would have gone back. And I had met with Debbie, the general manager, who's still there, Debbie Kenyon, and Jimmy, the program director, and it just didn't work out. I'm not going to get into that, but let's just say I wanted to come back. Apparently, there were probably some people there that didn't want me back because I left the first time. Maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, Valeni and a few others went to bat for me, but it didn't happen. So now it's like, all right, Locked On Lions started. David Locke, the voice of the Utah Jazz, started this podcast group and came to me that summer and said, we want to start up a podcast for NFL and NBA teams. Would you want to do the Pistons? And I said, I would do the Pistons, but can I do the Lions show? Because they're the number one team in town. He's like, sure. So I started doing that. And then I got in touch with some good friends that I had worked with, Teresa Doan at the Pistons, and she was going with Andy Appleby to start up USPBL with Dana, and it's right down the street from me. Like you said, you and I are East Siders, Ron, and so they said, would you want to MC ribbon cutting, the first game, do some interviews and all sorts of things for the first game at Jimmy John's Field? And I said, of course, I'll do it. I mean, I would love to. And then that turned into come back tomorrow. Can you come back Monday? Or I think the first game, I think, was on a Friday, Ron. So it was like, can you come back Saturday? Can you come back Sunday? And then during this was all like sporadic. It was like, Matt, do you want to go on the field in the fifth inning and do some sort of, I go, let's interview the managers on the field. They're like, do you think they'll do that? I go, this is semi-pro. This is like,
yes, they
this
will.
Isn't the majors. Maybe. And Chris Newell, who was the manager,
I love
as you
that
know,
guy. Love Chris
a good
Newell.
friend of yours as well as mine, Birmingham Bloomfield. I said to Chris, Chris, would you do an interview with me on the field during the game? And he goes, yeah, why not? So I went back to Andy and Teresa. I said, let's do this. And they're like, are you sure? I said, I got it. Just give me a mic, a handheld. They had one camera at the time. Put the camera wherever it is on me, and we'll do it on the scoreboard. And they loved it. So then they're like, keep coming back. Well, now I'm like, am I going to be here every day? Because I was getting my severance. I hadn't gotten a job yet. I was talking to U of D Jesuit about teaching. So for that summer, I was the in-game host, and it turned into a whole big thing where the next year we built a studio outside of the stadium right there at the entrance. So when fans came in at 6:30, I'd be interviewing players and coaches, and we made a big thing out of it. So for 3 or 4 summers, I was doing that, and they took care of me financially. It was pretty good, and that was it. You're right, but people were coming up to me like, dude, Matt Dery from The Ticket or DFN, what are you doing here? This is like not even professional affiliated baseball. I said, I love baseball.
It's fun.
It's fun. These are good people. Chris Newell became a friend. Teresa, Andy was great to me. Why not? And it's 10 minutes from, my wife didn't mind it either because I'd be home they try to get the games done early, Ron. You remember the old fireworks snafu. So I was home by 10 o'clock, so it wasn't too bad.
I have to tell you, and I've talked to Andy and Dana about this, and I think they've had some difficulties with some groups, but they did it on opening day, the first game, and I think they brought it back later in the first season. I don't think they've done it since then, but you know how these minor league ball teams, they'll have like novelty shows, and I'll never forget, they had donkeys riding dogs chasing sheep, and I was like, this is the best entertainment I've seen on the field. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
There were some things that they tried that worked. There were some things that Teresa and we had, I'll say this about, the interns, the best interns of all time worked at USPBL. These kids were put in such positions to succeed that they were stars. Like we had some star interns there. And so, but you're right. There were some things where the staff would say that was a home run, and Andy would come up and go, never again. Johnny G, who's the real voice of USPBL. He used to call me the voice of USPBL, and I would call him that. Johnny Grab, who's the PA announcer there and still is so talented and is so good. And that makes it for people to come to a game and hear Johnny do his thing, and he's the one tossing it to me, and he and I are doing a back and forth banter, I was interviewing Tom Dion, the mayor of Utica, who's become a friend. We had a blast, man. It was fun. And we had great times there. But yes, like you said, sometimes there were some things that Andy liked that no one else liked, or everyone liked that Andy didn't like. And Andy was the boss.